Hello everybody, and welcome to Yoshi-1 Kenobi's Double Vision Genesis Ultimatum deck. In this deck, the goal is to play Double Vision. It's an enchantment that costs 5, and whenever you cast your first instant or sorcery spell each turn, you copy that spell. Then you may choose new targets for the copy. Now this is a do-nothing enchantment on turn 5, so you get to cast it, and you only get your payoff next turn, and you only get it on your first instant and sorcery spell. So, in order to get a good payoff out of it, I decided to go after an even more powerful spell, so something that costs 7, namely Genesis Ultimatum. It's a 7 mana sorcery where you look at the top 5 cards of your library, put any permanent cards among them on the battlefield, and the rest into your hand. It's a very powerful card by itself, but with double visions in play, it allows you to look at the top 10 cards of your library, put all the permanents in play, and the rest into your hand, which is very powerful. Also, if you don't have double vision in play, you get the Genesis Ultimatum, and since double vision is an enchantment, which is a permanent, you get to put it in play for free for future Genesis Ultimatums. Now we're also playing a couple of other instants and sorceries to double up with our double vision, namely Giant Growth, which is mostly to ramp into the double vision, and is also one of the strongest cards in Standard right now. The second one being Quasi-Duplicate, which allows you to copy a target creature you control as a token. So with double vision, you create 2 tokens. And in which shell are we going to play this? We're going to be playing this in an elemental shell. We also have Scorching Dragonfire as a removal spell. Since we'll be playing best of ones, we need some way to deal and have some level of defense against these aggressive red strategies. So to round up our strategy, we're playing elementals. Leafkin Druids allow us to ramp. It's an elemental. Also, when you have enough creatures, it produces double green mana, which is pretty useful. Risen Reef is one of the core cards of our deck, since it also allows you to ramp or draw cards, synergizes with other elementals, and is great with Quasi-Duplicate. Especially with double visions in play, you get to Risen Reef into Risen Reef for 5 cards, basically, which is awesome. Scampering Scorcher, similar once you have a Risen Reef in play, it allows you to draw 3 cards and put the lands on the battlefield. Synergizes with Omnath. Whenever it enters the battlefield, deals damage equals to the number of elementals you control. It's the main win condition of the deck in terms of dealing the final points of damage. Once you get to cast a whole bunch of Genesis Ultimatums, get a ton of elementals in play, you summon your Omnath, burn your opponent for a whole bunch of damage. And if you get multiple Omnaths, you can end the game on the spot. So that's it for the non-land cards of the deck. In terms of lands, we're playing 4 copies of all the shock lands. We're playing 4 copies of the Triome in the Temur colors, 2 copies of each basic land, as well as 3 Fabled Passages to round up our colors. And this is the MTG Arena Standard version of Double Vision's Genesis Ultimatum. We are playing Temur Double Vision Ultimatum against Gezelum on MTG Arena in Standard. And we have a decent curve, so we will keep this. In particular, we have a Risen Reef, and you should never say no to Risen Reef, because it tries and goes "Roar!" Or maybe I'm confusing him with the seagulls. Our opponent is playing Temur Wreck, probably. Gruul aggro. Let's play a Risen Reef. That's pretty good. Our opponent is crushing our dream with the Bone Crusher Giant, exiling one of our lands. think I want to Omnath here. killing off that Pelt Collector. Mostly because that means next turn I get to Risen Reef, play the Fabled Passage, get 2 ticks on Risen Reef from the Omnat trigger, and then Scorching Dragonfire to remove a threat, which will put Risen Reef outside of a second Bone Crusher Giants. And everything I just said goes to the garbage can, as we take a beating from the robber of riches. But what does stay true is that I get to play Risen Reef and Scorching Dragonfire. So you will not get to play my Omnat. And I will get to play my Risen Reef. Now our mana is fixed. Which is excellent, because we have a Genesis Ultimatum. Yeah, Risen Reef. Let's see what we get. We will decline this and take it in our hand. That allows us to actually play the land and cast the Scampering Scorcher for a stupid amount of value. We get 6 Risen Reef triggers. Also known as a ton of mana. And we get another super draw and the Scampering Scorcher. We do need to be careful because our opponent is very likely playing Embercleave. Now's the time when we want to draw that double vision, since we already have the Genesis Ultimatum. Opponent plays Gruul Spellbreaker, so we no longer need to care about Embercleave. We will trade here. Ooh, Colossus. Haven't seen that card in a while. That'll do some damage. Alright, well, how about we board wipe and draw a whole bunch of cards? That will kill the Bone Crusher Giants. This one enter tap, boosting that. And we have our double vision. This one enter tapped, boosting that. Land enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card. Now we cast our double vision. And we cast a Leafkin Druid. Oop. I need to sack that Fabled Passage. Fetch last land. Boost on that. Play a Leafkin Druid. Get 2 Risen Reef triggers. Draw cards. No attacks. Pass the turn. Oh, actually we need to discard. Let's discard a Growth Spiral. I think we're past the point in the game where we want to ramp that much. We will double block in case our opponent has some stupid stuff. Like an Embercleave Colossus. Our opponent is going to kill our on that. Hit us for 1, but we've dealt with the big threat, and now we finally get to double Genesis Ultimatum. And we will have to be careful, because I think a Scampering Scorcher... Nonsense, being careful. We will get 6 Risen Reef triggers before the second Genesis Ultimatum shows up. We draw a ton of cards. Yes, you may enter the battlefield. Double vision. Enters the battlefield tap. Enters the battlefield tap. We will play the 2 steam vents. And only the 2 steam vents. Alright. And now, what else do we want to play? On that, Locust of the Royal. Burning our opponent for tons of damage. Drawing ourselves some cards. And for every land we get to boost our Scampering Scorcher. And now we attack. And we pass the turn. Discarding the quasi-duplicates, the growth spirals, because we really don't want to draw more cards now. Risen Reef will also kill us. And so will Genesis Ultimatum. So let's discard all of these things. Leafkin Druids, I think we're good on mana. So the only downside is we only have 6 cards in our deck, but our opponent resigns, so we're all good. And we got to cast a double visioned Ultimatum. We are playing MTG Arena Standard with Temur Double Vision Ultimatum against David Mangales. And we have a whole bunch of ramp and a quasi-duplicate, which will be enough to keep. I would have preferred the 3rd land instead of one of the Leafkin Druids, and probably a Risen Reef instead of quasi-duplicate. But we don't get to pick all the cards in our opening hand, do we? It would make aggro decks extremely strong. A little too strong. Let's see what our opponent is playing. Let's see how fast we can guess it. By default, I'm going to say that our opponent is likely to be playing a mono-red aggro until told otherwise. Play that land. Alright. Our opponent is playing mono-red aggro. We figured out what our opponent was playing before our opponent played a single card. Now that's draw 2 card. I mean, that's divination powers. This time we are on the play. And we already have a little bit of ramping action going on. We also have a turn 2 Risen Reef. Well, turn 3 Risen Reef. Which is tempting. Risen Reef, Leafkin Druid, and Quasi-Duplicate. Making a pretty powerful combination, especially with a Scampering Scorcher. The only question is, can we afford to try and keep our Leafkin Druid alive if our opponent has a Bone Crusher Giant or a Shock? Triome. I think we have to run it out. We just get too much value. And if our opponent has to use a kill spell to kill it, then we're still in decent shape. Because we'll Scampering Scorcher, which will put in a pile of blockers for next turn. We are not blocking this, especially since we're in Embercleave territory. No Embercleave. Anax, maybe? Oh, so many cards. Of course, I'm about to play a Scampering Scorcher off of a Risen Reef, so I'm not sure really what I'm complaining about. Okay, I'm complaining about all the Fervent Champions in the world. Alright, well, let's go. Scampering Scorcher. For those who thought Growth Spiral was the big ramp spell. I'll also play Katria Triome. Leafkin Druid adds double green now, because we control 4 more creatures. So we'll do that. Have more lands, pass the turn, because the next turn is going to be dangerous. Our opponent's going to be playing a third Fervent Champion with Embercleave mana up. But when you have 5 creatures attacking, you don't really need much to have Embercleave mana up. 3 Scorched Spitters and 3 Fervent Champions. I'm seeing doubles now. It's like I have double vision. Alright. So the Flaming Lizards and the Flaming Swordsmen are going to attack. We are going to line up a triple block against a weak Fervent Champion. Even if our opponent uses something on it. Well, let's block one with Druid. And let's triple block another one. Our opponent should be able to kill both. Odds are our opponent will aim a burn spell at Scampering Scorcher, in which case we will lose the 2 fire tokens for quote-unquote nothing. Or we'll actually get to kill off one of the Fervent Champions. In which case we get to play the Risen Reef. Double triggers. Omnat. Always a nice addition. More mana. And now we just do stupid stuff. Let's keep some space for Omnat. Scorching! Genesis Ultimatum. Double Vision. Lands. More Risen Reef. More ultimatums. But I think we have enough value on our value train. At this point, we just want to not die. Let's go at a Fervent Champion. Get more value. Get more lands. And make a Scorcher grow. Now we have a pair of 3/3 to block, and we'll pass the turn. Discarding 2 cards. Oh, we don't need 2 double visions and Genesis Ultimatums. In particular, with the amount of Risen Reef triggers we've gotten, we're in slight danger of decking ourselves out. Ouch. That hurts. Well, we get to blow up our opponent's field. That is something. Oh yeah, Torbrand. Ah, that is a dumb block. Alright. Well, what do we want to do here? We can Genesis Ultimatum. Actually, we get to double vision Genesis Ultimatum, which will put an unreal amount of creatures in play. Let's do that. And that's why we're playing the deck. And we're dead to burn spell anyways. So double vision. Genesis Ultimatum. We get to play a ton of cards. We get a pair of Scorching Dragonfires. We get to boost the Risen Reef. For every land, we get to draw cards off of Omnat. Then we get the second Genesis Ultimatum to resolve. We get more lands. We get to boost our Risen Reef even further. And we get to draw a card because we control 8 or more lands. We need to be careful not to mill ourselves. Let's sacrifice one of those Fabled Passages. Yeah, alright, there's nothing to fetch. Now we need to figure out how we win this game. We'll play the Steve Ed's tapped, because we can't pay for it. We'll grow our Risen Reef. Alright. Now we need to get rid of that Torbran. We have 5 mana available. We can double Scorching Dragon Fire. And then we attack for 14. And we still die to a burn spell. Let's go to combat and attack with both. Funnel is likely to block the Risen Reef. Letting all the damage go through. Can't they cast another on that? Or even better, quasi-duplicate our current on that. It's not quite enough. No, let's kill Torbran. Yeah, sure, why not? Why does it say we get to cast Growth Spiral? Oh, we have more lands! It's the first time I've seen this. We actually have too many lands to display on the screen. Alright, well, let's end the turn. Discard 11 cards. We don't need Growth Spirals anymore. Risen Reef would kill us. Fabled Passage is useless. Growth Spiral again. We don't need 15 Scorching Dragon's Fire. Growth Spiral. Quasi-duplicate. I kind of want the on that. Let's move another Scorching Dragon's Fire. We don't need 15 double visions. I guess we'll get rid of another on that. Alright, that sounds about right. Not too sure what I discarded there. There were a lot of cards. But really it comes down to, does our opponent have a burn spell? Because otherwise our double vision ultimatum with 15,000 Risen Reef triggers is going to win the game. Steamkin, that's promising. Robber of the Riches. I'll let that resolve, but not go to combat. And we are going to Scorching Dragon's Fire, the Steamkin, and the Robber of Riches. Thanks to double vision. And our opponent should scoop. And we're getting a Magic Arena warning. And we are back in business, attacking for lethal. And that is game with a double vision Temur Ultimatum. And we are playing Temur Double Vision Ultimatum against Nyctopopoulos. Alright, that looks like a good hand. We have our double vision, we have a bunch of ramp, we have a removal spell. Actually, we couldn't ask for much of a better hand. And we also have the Triome, which is a good way to start. hopefully we will get to play our double vision ultimatum combo this game. Their opponent is playing Temur Clover by the looks of it. That'd be my guess. Based on the double land, the dual land, and the fact that we have a Lovestruck Beast. 3 colors, it's almost sure now. It's Temur Clover against Temur Double Vision Ultimatum. Let's see which one of the two brews is the strongest. Our opponent's probably holding a Bone Crusher Giant. In which case, let's go on that. As tempting as it is to run down the Risen Reef though. Yeah, our opponent's definitely holding something up. Alright, it's a good thing we didn't play the Risen Reef. On 3, do you cast the Bone Crusher Giant? Probably no Clover, because our opponent would have played the Clover last turn. Lovestruck Beast comes out, which will allow us to play our double vision. Let's get it out there. At the very least, we have the double Scorching Dragonfire option. It really is a match of doubling. Double vision against double adventures. But our card costs more mana, therefore it should be more powerful. Alright, so our opponent casts Incongruity to exile Omnath, which is totally fine. And now we cast our Risen Reef. Oh, that is value. We drew into a second Risen Reef, which we get to cast for 2 triggers. And we just drew the card that'll end it all. The Scampering Scorcher for 6 triggers of Risen Reef. But our opponent's got his stuff. Lucky Clover. Now, hopefully there's no Bone Crusher Giant, because that would be a bummer. And a bummer it is. There goes our Risen Reefs. Alright, well if you want to play that way, we are going to kill your Lovestruck Beast using the power of Double Vision to make our weak removal spell into a slightly less weak removal spell. And we'll get to apply some pressure, hitting our opponent for 6 with a Lizard Frog and a bunch of Fiery Elementals. Our opponent ramps up really fast using the Beanstalk Giant, and will probably cast the Bone Crusher Giant. It would be nice to stop drawing lands. Let's pass the turn. We need to get a bit more value out of that Scorching Dragonfire. Our opponent is likely to cast the other Bone Crusher Giant. Or even better, an Edgewall Innkeeper. Edgewall Innkeeper. I don't want you to draw 2 cards. I would really like to kill both Edgewall Innkeepers, but our opponent has a timing window where they get to cast the Bone Crusher Giant. And the Edgewall Innkeeper is going to resolve the trigger. Well, the triggers are going to resolve. There's nothing I can do about it. So let's limit the card draw to a single card. We really want an ultimatum now. We have 4 chances in 43. Ah! Killing off our double vision. Now that's just plain mean. So we'll cast the Scampering Scorcher and attack with everything. Because we want to get some damage through eventually. And our opponent still has a Clover and we don't have anything. Might as well play it. Just because it's a shock land. So we have almost lethal. Yet it feels like we're almost dead. We'll lose 2 tokens to Petty Theft. Their opponent can cast one of these buggers. Another one next turn. Omnat would also be pretty good. Alright. Let's not show our trick to our opponent just quite yet. Now we cast it. Double vision! All we need is an ultimatum. Or an Omnat. So I guess we have 3 Omnats, 4 ultimatums. Our opponent is at 2, but we're not really playing any burn spell other than Omnat, Locust of the Royal. Opponent draws a card. Leaf Kindred. Which will be Chum Blocker for the Beanstalk Giant. Fae of Wishes. Can go fetch. Yeah. Shadow Spear Fling. Yeah. That'll do it. This is the time when I wish I was playing paper and I could see just how close we are to hitting our ultimatum. Yeah, there is no way out. We're gonna get burned down by a giant flung to our face. At the very least, we got a close game playing Temur Double Vision Ultimatum, which apparently the Double Vision's just not quite as good as the Lucky Clover. Good game, opponent. Good game. And we are playing Temur Double Vision Ultimatum against a Turing Machine. Maybe the Turing Machine will want to decode what we're doing fairly fast. Alright, we are playing against a Yorion deck. Which means we are likely to get to play some cards this game. Yorion discard. Let's get the ramp going. We have our combo, but it's going to get dismantled. Which rats and stuff. Rats and discard. Let's go into Risen Reef, into a counterspell. Oh no, we get to resolve it. Oh yes. We do want the land tapped. Ramping at its best. Almond of the Sun, summoning a pair of human soldiers. Now since we are playing best of one, it means that our opponent is going to want to play a lot of defensive cards. Which aren't really the best against us. Fenlurker. Let's get rid of Steam Vents. I believe in my deck. Let's go double visions. And pass the turn. Atris, the Oracle of Half-Truths. I do not want you to get the Elspeth Conqueror's Death. So I'll show you the Teferi. Who can resist the Teferi? Yeah, not my current opponent. And now the fun begins, because we get to quasi-duplicate with double visions. So we get 2 duplicate Risen Reef. Risen Reef triggers. Risen Reef triggers. And Ender's tapped. 3 more. That's fine. This one I want to draw. We will get to sacrifice our Fabled Passage so that it is untapped for Island, I guess. And now we're doing fairly well. We get to Omnat if we want. Scampering Scorcher is a little ridiculous here. Yeah, let's go with Omnat. We will kill off a little afraid of Yorion bouncing those discard spells. Although, do I really care? I don't think I do. Let's get rid of Atris. And put more lands into play. And grow our real Risen Reef. Now we have our Genesis Ultimatum available with the double visions in play. I also have quasi-duplicates. You might just want a Scampering Scorcher, then double quasi-duplicate our Omnat to our opponent's face. I think that that's what we want to do. That'd deal a lot of damage. Our opponent plays the Fairy and bounces our double vision. And our opponent resigns in the face of the power of double vision. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe by clicking the Yoshi icon at the right of your screen. It doesn't cost you any mana, and it greatly helps to support this channel and keep the awesome videos coming.